What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are here to talk all things Alien Romulus in a full spoiler discussion. I am so excited to be talking about this movie with you all because I am a fan of this franchise. Even a bigger fan of the director Fede Alvarez, and this was one of my most anticipated films of the year. We'll be diving into everything about the film, the opening of the film, what I thought the story was going to lead into, performances, what worked, what didn't work, so ending. This will be a very fun video, and again, I appreciate you all clicking on it. Just do me a favor before we get into the discussion. Hit the like button if you like this film, if you like this franchise. Hit the share button if you want to share this conversation amongst other Alien fans, but also leave your thoughts in the comments. What did you like about the film? What didn't you like about the film? What do you think about the ending? What does it mean for the future? What will happen next? And share your personal ranking of the franchise in the comments below. So with all that being said, for those, if you just happen to click on this video and you don't want to know spoilers, don't worry. I do have a spoiler-free review available on the channel now that you all can check out. That's a little bit more analytical because this is more of an open discussion. So within that spoiler-free review, you'll hear my thoughts on the performances more, the aesthetic, the production, the direction, the story, and I'll give you all my rankings. So check that out if you want. You don't want to get spoiled with anything. But again, this is a full spoiler discussion. So with that, let's get into it, y'all. Let's talk about this opening scene. So as we open up this particular film, we see the Wayland employees in space looking for their asset. And we all know what that is, and that is xenomorph that we see from the first film. Now, this is when I'm going to have the conversation with you all, starting off with this talking point here, and that is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the alien that was floating through space, the xenomorph, was Kane's son, right? The big clap, as they call it. That is that alien, right? Correct me if I'm wrong in that assumption that I had. But I will say, speaking to that point, whether it is the alien, which I'm pretty 99% sure that's the same alien from 1979 Alien, they take it into their ship, take it out of its cocoon and being in space. That particular alien later in the film, which I was kind of disappointed by because I thought that that was the alien we were going to be following with our new crew on Romulus, but that wasn't the case. And I'll talk about that a little bit later as far as being a little bit disappointed that that alien wasn't the same alien that I was hoping to see throughout the film. But again, we'll put a pin in that and talk about that later. But I will say, and again, I'll talk about this more in the review, just kind of talking to the production and Fede Alvarez. I really love this opening scene because it really just set the mood, right? It just let me know, and I was already confident that he was going to be able to do what I was hoping he was going to do, and that's capture the spirit of the Alien franchise. Like from the opening scene and going onto the ship, seeing Mother, seeing the aesthetic, it kind of mirrored the opening scene in 1979 Alien, and that just put a big smile on my face because I just knew that we were, again, I knew we were in the right hands, but that just kind of reaffirmed my confidence in Fede. And again, it's not a perfect movie, and I talk about that in this video, but I think from a production standpoint, I like what Fede was able to bring to this franchise. And again, I thought the opening sequence really kind of set the mood. There, getting into kind of the talking points here and kind of touching on what we get from a story perspective from this, transition from the opening scene to the story. It's a pretty straightforward story. We have Andy and, his sister. Andy's an android who we find out pretty early on, but we have Rain, played by Kaylee Spanning. Rain's our main character. They're on this planet that is very hazardous. It is a planet that has chemicals because they work, it's a mining planet, and people are dying left and right. Her father, I don't know if they mentioned her mother, but essentially, I guess both of her parents died. And a lot of the other characters' parents have died as well, which I just assume was due to the environment they were in. It's like 2,600, 2,700 people that inhabited this particular planet. The whole goal of the movie is Jane wants to take her brother, who again is Andy, who is an android. We find that out very early in the movie, and I kind of knew that based on the trailers. Wants to get off this planet, and I can't remember the name of the planet she wants to go to, but it has a sun. It is a beautiful area. She dreams about it earlier in the film. That's kind of her entrance into the movie, is her dreaming about this planet. She wants to take her brother, Andy, who's created from her father, who I wish there was maybe a little bit more backstory to kind of hit home on those emotional beats, but he's programmed to have like dad jokes, and that was kind of a thing that you see early on. She cares for her brother cares for her, because the objective was to keep Rain safe due to the father's programming, and she wants to get off this planet. She's done all her time, done on her hours, and she goes to leave the planet, or to at least get the ball rolling to leave the planet. But then she talks to one of the people and they deny her, and whatever the case may be, they're like, Wayland just wants you to stay. It's like you pretty much get the sense that these people are stuck on this planet. And from there, we're introduced to, as I'll talk about in this breakdown, the supporting cast, who I was not a big fan of. And that is consisting of Tyler, you have Navarro, you have Key, and then you have Braun, I believe his name was. And I'll talk about them a little bit later. But essentially, their plan is, hey, let's leave this planet. Let's go into the atmosphere because there is a discommissioned station ship that Wayland has been kind of forgotten about. So let's go in there, take some valuable equipment, but more importantly, let's take their sleeping pods or chambers and use that to our advantage to go to this other planet that has the sun and it has, it's a much more better environment for them. But the catch is going to that planet, it takes 9 years to do so. So getting those sleeping chambers is very critical. And Rain's like, okay, well, what does that have to do with me? Why do you guys need me? He was like, well, we don't really need you, Rain, but we need your android because it works for Wayland and they can hack into the system and it works to their advantage. So again, it's pretty straightforward as far as the objective and the goal. And Rain's main goal is to get off this planet for her and her brother's safety, even though there's a little bit of a catch that she doesn't tell Annie a little bit later, which is found out. But let me throw in, and this is not necessarily, look, I'm going to tell you right now, this is my what if scenario, right? I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not suggesting I'm a screenwriter, but I always like to have fun with these type of movies that I really enjoy. But what if we went down another path? What if there was a different spin on the story? And that's what I'm going to kind of pitch to you all now. So with that being said, my little fan fiction idea for the narrative is, what if we have pretty much the same kind of basic outline of the story of getting off this planet, but we remove some of the characters and inject some new characters? So what I'm thinking is, first and foremost, them leaving this planet, to me, I thought there were going to be some type of ramifications or consequences or some type of Wayland security guards or just people on that planet that do not want you to leave. So I thought they were going to be followed. And let's just say it's a special force team or whatever the case may be. I was thinking they were going to go to the decommissioned ship and they were going to come across that same police force or whatever you want to call it. Essentially, we're going to have like our crew that we're going to be following, led by Rain, and then another crew who's going to be trying to take them back to their planet. But then, of course, they come across xenomorphs and the facehuggers and all that stuff, and they have to team together. Now, my big pitch with that, and I have another idea with that ties into it. The lead force guy, the leader of the group, is played by the one and only Stephen Lang. Obviously has a history with Eddie Alvarez with Don't Breathe. I'm like, that would have been a pretty interesting idea, which kind of ties into my second idea, which is kind of the same frameworking. They don't leave the planet. They have people following them. And I say that because there's a shot in the opening scenes that shows someone like smoking a cigar, a cigarette, and then just watching them take off. I thought that person was going to chase them because there's a line that one of the characters say, Navarro, one of them says, someone's going to eventually find that decommissioned ship and take off the valuable goods. Why not it be us? Why don't we strike while the iron's hot? So I thought the idea was that person, and let's just say that's Stephen Lang, he saw them and he's going to follow them. And they're not police force, but they're like bandits. They're like actual thieves. They follow them. They take out some of their people, not like physically hurt them, but they're overempowering them because these are, I don't want to say kids, but they're like, I was led to believe that they're late in their like teenage years or early 20s, but nonetheless they're younger. So Stephen Lang's crew's older. They've done this before. They're familiar with robbing people or what have you. But again, the whole idea of them working together and Stephen Lang kind of being in the mix. And listen, the reason I kind of suggest that is because, as I'll say now, I just did not enjoy the supporting cast. I'm not talking about David's character who played Andy or Kaylee who played, Rain. I thought they were the driving force of this film. They were the heart of the soul of this film. But I'm talking about Navarro, Tyler, and, Kay to a certain extent, even though I know Isabel Marcel is like a pretty important character. At least she's a pretty important plot device for the baby that we'll talk about later. And Braun, like, I just didn't like the characters, man. I didn't root for them. There wasn't enough development. It wasn't enough for me to care for the characters. And I'm a fan of this franchise. And even some of the bad movies, they always have like really good ensemble cast. And I just thought that the cast in this film wasn't great. Weren't memorable. Is nothing from a performance standpoint, but I just didn't really care for them. And that was kind of a detriment to this film for my enjoyment, is the cast just wasn't casting for me. A little pitch, I'm removing all those characters except for Isabel Marcel, David's character is Andy, and Rain. Like, they can go on this journey that I'm referring to. And then you have the rest of the cast being led by Stephen Lang and his crew. And obviously, like I said, they'd be taken out by the xenomorph. So Yeah, obviously, it didn't happen. But let me know what you all think about that particular spin on the story. And did you all think that there was going to be maybe another group of people following them to finding this decommissioned ship and then getting it all involved in that? But let me know what you think about that in the comments below. But back to the actual film and story that we have here. So they aboard the ship, and this whole time you're noticing that the Braun character, who's like an asshole to Andy, we find out later the reason he doesn't like Andy is he just doesn't like androids, because we find out that his parents, who worked in the mining fields, got into a mining accident, and the droid who was supervising the situation made the decision to allow Braun's parents to die to save the rest of the crew. So I thought that was going to have more of a payoff, and it kind of has a thematic payoff, because the idea of him being fearful of a droid turning bad kind of happened. Well, it did happen with Andy, but I was hoping that there was going to be a moment where Andy kind of maybe saved Braun and he was going to maybe forgive him, and he's hoping that was going to have more of a payoff for that Braun character. Because again, one of my biggest criticisms was the supporting characters didn't have much to do at all, and their personalities were lacking. So anyway, as we kind of move along, we see that they realize that the sleeping chambers don't have enough juice, don't have enough power to get them where they need to be. Tyler comes up with the idea that this ship probably has some type of source that we can use, which leads them into go into one of the laboratories. So we get our first big face hugger scene, and from kind of now on out, I'm just going to kind of highlight my standout moments from this movie instead of going like scene by scene and whatnot, and kind of talking about what worked and what didn't work as we kind of go along through the film. So the face hugger scene, which is in the trailer, it is from a suspenseful experience. Like at this point in the film, very similar to Fede Alvarez paying homage to 1979, Alien, where it's kind of a slow burn. Again, we're meeting the characters. I wish they were more fleshed out and they were more enjoyable. We meet the characters, we meet the situation, and then this is like at the 30-minute mark, it's just the fan, right? So the temperature's going up, the face huggers are coming down into the water, and again, it's tense filled. There's some good tension going on. Andy, I can't remember how it happened, but Andy kind of has a malfunction. This is where the pilot, Navarro, and Rain decide to step in and help them out. They come up with an idea of how to get them out of the situation, and again, everyone's able to make it out, but then one of the face huggers kind of squeezes through the door and lands on Navarro's face. But from there, this is where a criticism comes to mind. So they have Navarro, who's going to die, who has the face hugger on there, and they're starting to realize that the alien, when you try to pull it off, the face hugger is killing it. So this is an issue that I had, and this is, so they go to one area where there is a decommission, or what they thought to be a dead android, but it's not dead. It's very much still alive. They wake up this android and they come up with the idea, let's take the chip out of the android and put it into Andy so we can kind of know what we're doing, how to navigate this ship. The android, lo and behold, ends up being but he went by the name of Rook. And it's the same actor, well, not the same actor because they passed away in 2020, Ian, who was in the original Alien film, and a great actor overall. Again, rest in peace. They passed away about 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. But my issue is this is when the film, again, is kind of leaned too much into the nostalgia, into the rehashing of things, and bringing back like a character like that, even though it's not the same. It's not Ash. It's it's obviously a different model with the same interface or the same, look of the Ash character. But the reason I didn't like it is, number one, it leans on the nostalgia of it all, but from a visual standpoint, I wasn't a fan. I thought the practical effects were perfect in this film. I thought the visual effects were great, especially the blending of the two. I was never distracted. It just was seamless when we went from practical to the CGI, especially when we're out in those beautiful space scenes. And it was just really well put together, except for this Rook looking character it was just so distracting. And again, when the camera wasn't like focused on them and we saw that character through different TV screens, that was fine. But again, when we would focus on that character, that's when it kind of threw me out. It was very distracting. Again, it could be a me thing, but let me know if you all found that CGI to be because it stood out like a sore thumb, because everything else was so beautiful looking except for that. Am I on a boat alone on this one, on the island alone on this one? Did you guys kind of feel the same way that CGI did not look good? Let me know how you felt about that in the comment section. But before kind of moving on, we do get this exposition dump. And the android tells and like I said, at this point, Andy has this chip, and Andy's objective has switched from protecting Rain to going to the mission that android had to get the assets back to Wayland. Exposition dump of explaining what happened to the crew on this particular ship. And this is, and again, I was not necessarily a criticism, but I wish we would have explored this more. They show that the Kane's son, Xenomorph, attacked everyone, wiped out the ship with ease, and we see that through like a camera screen. Like I would have liked to have seen that versus seeing it on a small monitor. Why didn't we see that? I would have loved to have seen that. But my question is there a world in which we see, I don't know if it'll be a full-on movie, who's to say it won't be, but is there a possibility we see that scene? We see that crew picking up the xenomorph, putting on the ship, and we see that in this movie, but we don't see the aftermath. We just see it through the screen. Do we see a movie where they show the lead up? We see the Waystar employees going into space, finding the xenomorph. We see them attack, and we get the ramifications of that and how they end up killing the xenomorph. Like, is that a movie? Is that a one-off, I don't know, TV show? Is that a comic book run? Like, I would like to see that because, again, I want to follow and see what happened to Kane's son, how it ended up dying. So, am I alone in that? Would you guys want to see again prequel movie, TV show, comic book, something that kind of dives deeper into the origins of what actually happened to the crew and how they all, I mean, we know they died, but I want to see it. Am I alone in that? Let me know how you guys feel about that. But at this point, we already know that Rook is bad. He's a company man, just like most of the androids besides Bishop and Alien. But again, like I had mentioned, Andy's main objective is to finish his mission, which we kind of see that throughout the rest of this film. And from here, kind of shows where he's at, because going back to Navarro with the face hugger, see him taking her back to the ship, but we see Andy's chasing him because Andy's like, we got to finish this mission. We got to take care of, we need that asset. So I need to get her. Obviously, Braun is under the impression that he wants to kill her, which was what he was going to do. So they're on the ship. Andy misses them. And this is where Rain's starting to realize my Andy isn't the same Andy anymore, which I wonder if they name him Andy because of Toy Story. But anyway, we have them going there. And while they're on the ship, this whole time, by the way, Isabel Marcel character Kay is asleep during all this stuff. She wakes up because at this point, Navarro, when we saw the scene in the trailer, of course, if you're watching this, you saw the movie. Pretty cool scene. They got the little X-ray thing and see the chest burster, which eventually comes out. Pretty brutal scene. I really liked that. I wish there was a little bit more of that in the movie, but Kay's up. She's trying to help, but unfortunately, too little, too late. This is an interesting scene. So we have him in the hallway. We have Kay in the hallway. Again, she's finally awake after all this. And, the ship's kind of going on the control. They see a cocoon being created in the hallway. He takes the, like a little laser gun that he used that he found earlier and tries to laser it, which, by the way, him lasering the xenomorph, I think is seen, like visually seen later on, because there's a moment when we see that xenomorph and there's like electricity going on in his head. And I'm thinking that's because when it was being transformed and being created, it was because of him electrocuting. I could be wrong, but ends up dying in a pretty kind of lame way. I wish it was a little bit more brutal. And that is, as I'm talking about that is something that was a criticism of mine. It felt tamed, especially knowing Fetty. And if you've seen Evil Dead, that man does not have tame in his vocabulary. Like, he goes full on. He does that later in this film with the third act, which is my favorite part of the film. But I just wish the kills were more brutal and just crazier and more innovative, but neither here nor there. He dies, but before he dies, this is where I want to talk to you all about, and let me know if I'm reading this wrong. But before he dies, he wants to protect Kay, and they have this like moment of embracing each other. Now, there's two ways to read that moment. It's not a big deal, but I just want to have this conversation with you all. We found out earlier that Kay is pregnant, and she doesn't know she doesn't, I don't want to say she doesn't know who the father is. She doesn't reveal to Rain who the father is. But my question to you all is, was Bjorn the father of Kay's child, who later comes to be that hybrid creature? Am I reading that wrong? Did I read that scene wrong? And the reason I say am I reading that wrong, because I think it was established. It was maybe a throwaway line, or maybe I'm putting this in my head canon. I thought that Tyler and Bjorn were cousins, and obviously Tyler and Kay are siblings, which would make that her cousin as well. Is that the father? Was it not the father? It could be the father, because again, it was like, and again, he could have been embracing her because that's his cousin. He cares for her, but I almost read it like they were intimate, and that was his kid, unborn kid, that Kay was having. And I don't know. Let me know what y'all think about that. Again, I could be reading the scene wrong, and it could be that was just a cousin. He cared for her, wants her to be safe, and maybe he knew that she was pregnant because he was the father. But look, man, there's only 2,600, 2,700 people on that planet. Not a lot to choose from. Move on from there, because at this point we lost Navarro, we've lost, Braun, and it's just like I didn't care because we didn't spend. Not that we have to spend a whole 30 minutes for those characters, but I don't feel like the film did enough legwork to make me care for those characters. For when the scenes hit, you feel something, because that's what I love about the originals, man. The Parkers of the world, and the Hicks and Nuke and all the characters that we fall in love with these franchises, or these films within the franchise. But I just didn't really care for these characters, and I love Fetty. But the more I think about it, his supporting cast aren't always that memorable. He always has like this theme where the siblings, there's always like a sibling relationship that's trying to be repaired or fixed. Again, going back 2013 Evil Dead, Mia and her brother, she was a drug addict. He was taking her to the forest they went to, or to the cabin they went to. They were kids to do their the rehab. We have obviously the main character female that we follow, who was Mia and Evil Dead. She had a little sister. She wanted to get out of Detroit, have a better living situation. In this film, obviously, like I said, Rain wants to get off this planet with her and her brother to be in a better situation. So there's themes that he likes to play with in most of his films. But like I said, the more I think about it, a lot of those supporting characters from Evil Dead, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Don't Breathe aren't that well written or memorable. They have like scenes that are cool. Like there's scenes in in this film that are memorable, like Navarro, the chest burster, and all that stuff. But yeah, his supporting characters, and in particularly with this film, just didn't work for me, y'all. Like, let me know if you felt the same thing. Like I said, I just didn't care for him, and if I did care for him, it would have made those scenes more emotional. But I love Fetty, and I wish Fetty was more in this movie, like it was in the third act, which we'll get into here in a second. But I do like the idea of like, let's take things we've seen before in the franchise and put our own spin to it, even though I wish it was just more innovative throughout. But there are scenes like the one I'm going to talk about now, which is seeing the temperature rising so they can match the temperature for the face hugger so they can go through that corridor, which was very much reminiscent and reminded me so much of Don't Breathe. Like, I don't want to say haunted house, but like being very careful, playing into the tension of the situation, and seeing our characters kind of make it through. Again, I felt the tension, and I really liked that scene, besides the fact that Tyler was like having a full-on conversation with his sisters, like, don't talk, don't be nervous. And obviously we see how that scene played out, but I did like that scene. And like I said, it was just like, we've seen face huggers and all that stuff, but let's have our version of like how to sneak past them, playing with the temperature, like stuff like that was kind of cool to me. But from there, we see Kay is running from the xenomorph, and I like just that setup of like the rain coming down on her, which kind of reminded me of Evil Dead in a sense. But she's running from the xenomorph, and this is where Rain sees how like messed up Andy is, or at least that it's not her Andy, where she's running from the xenomorph, it's following her, and she's at the door, and Andy's like, no, I'm not about to compromise our mission to save one, going back to, the whole android and the mining situation. We're under the assumption that Kay's dead because the xenomorph takes it. Tyler's upset, and I'm just like, I wish their bond was a little bit stronger so I can feel that emotion. But she gets taken, and again, I thought that scene was nice. I just wish that I cared for the sister and brother having their moment there. But from there, we have, again, the emotional moment, though, that did work was seeing Rain, seeing her brother, her protector, the things she remembers her parents and her dad by, being completely different, right? A changed person or a changed android with a different objective. So that, from that moment, did kind of work for me, seeing Andy being more of the, Ash / David character, the androids that we've seen from Alien and of course Prometheus and Covenant, and more and less of the Bishop character that we got from Aliens. So like that sibling kind of confrontation that she has to deal with. Now at this point, the film kind of slows down in a sense, because we get another kind of exposition moment where they go to the lab where Annie takes them. And this is as a fan of Prometheus, I like what they were doing, but I wish that there was maybe explored more. So as they go into this lab, again, exposition, Rook tells them this is what we were here for, to find the perfect, or at least he was experimenting on what they found with the debris, and experimenting on the xenomorph and the face huggers and the eggs, and he wants to take the mission. Again, very much like David and Prometheus and Covenant, they want to make the perfect specimen. And we have the goo making its return from Prometheus and Covenant into this movie, and he wants, again, to see the human evolution take place. He doesn't want to wait eons for it to happen. He wants it to happen quicker. So they've been experimenting. He's kind of mixed around with the goo, with the alien blood, human blood. Obviously, it has the engineer's blood and what have you in there. And again, I just wanted it to be explored more because, again, as a fan of Prometheus and Covenant and the ideologies that Ridley Scott was playing with creation and engineers then the formation of the xenomorphs, I just wish that the film, if you're going to go there, let's go there. But again, it was just kind of like, hey, fan service for fans like me that like those two prequels. But it's just like, innovative, have your own thing that you're trying to get into instead of for having like that type of callback. But speaking of callbacks, this is another standout scene for me, and that is the gravity scene. So at this point, again, kind of lame death or on not off screen because we see the blood but we don't really see what happens. But I'm referring to Tyler character. He gets stabbed in the shoulder and is taken out, and we don't see what happens, but we just see the blood. I'm assuming that they obviously they're harvesting the body, so I'm assuming that they put him in one of their little cocoons or whatever. But again, kind of a lame death for that character. So it's left up to Rain and Andy, who is still the bad Andy, but they are, we get the call back from when they first got on the ship, they noticed the gravity was going up and down. So Rain, smart, innovative, she turns off the gravity. We see the alien xenomorphs, who's there's like 3 or 4 of them, 5 of them chasing them now. Very Aliens moment. The gravity lifts up. They're lifting up on the ground, and she goes ham. She does her best impression of Ripley, and she's shooting the aliens with the gun. And I just love that scene because, again, it took me back to, if you all ever played Alien Isolation video game, an excellent video game about survival and just having like moments like this of trying to be creative and innovative to survive. And we see they have to dodge the acid and also going back to the aliens callback. We find out that they don't want them to shoot, and the reason she takes the gravity up is because if the blood acid hits the surfaces of the ship, it's just going to blow a hole in the ship, and obviously they're in space and it'll take them out. So that was cool, man. I really, really dug that scene. And again, it was just a smart on her part, a really cool visual scene. And again, the tension was really there for me in that moment. Let me know what you all thought about the blood acid scene. So as we kind of enter into the third act of the film, which I thought was the best part of the film, starting with that scene in the hallway with the acid, Andy gets a malfunction. He gets hit over the head by one of the xenomorphs, and we see that she's able to kind of bring him back, but she has to leave. He's back like, I have to protect you, so go ahead and leave. And at this point, by the way, I forgot to mention, Sleepy K, she is still alive at this point. She was in a cocoon, but they took her out again, going back to Aliens reference with Nuke being captured. They take her. They go on the elevator again. This is very much an Aliens type of rehashing. They go on the elevator and she has the moment, the Nuke moment. I need to save my, brother. She tells Kay, go up to the ship. She gets her gun ready. Again, it is literally almost like shot for shot of Ripley and Aliens, James Cameron's Aliens 1986. She goes back. She finds him, elevator, and the gravity has a timer going on, right? And at this point, too, as you guys know, the ship is going to self-destruct soon and all this stuff. So it's just hitting the fan. They're on a clicking time bomb. So they made their way to the elevator, and the xenomorph follows them. Andy's kind of all the way up. She kind of fell down. The gun's gone at this point, but the xenomorphs find them, and we get a very kind of almost a mirroring shot of Aliens 3 with the alien looking at Ripley. They're face to face. Andy saves his sister by dropping down, getting the gun, shooting the face huggers and what have you, which again I thought was a pretty cool scene. Like, I love the third act because it felt more like Fetty, and it felt like it was just more creative in how they were handling some things, even though, like I said, it was recreating or remixing things that we've seen before. But I just thought that was a really cool sequence. But the only thing that I did not like about this sequence is a recall or, again, a legacy moment, a rehashing moment of the iconic line from Ripley talking to the xenomorph about, get your hands off her, bitch, or whatever. David's character, Andy, says that, and it was just like, number one, the line delivery, because he was like, he had his malfunction and he like had a stuttering thing. So it kind of didn't work, but also like, it's clearly a callback because this film takes place before Aliens. So, and not that like you can't say those words, but it was just like, that was just too on the nose for me. And it kind of took me out of the moment, but neither here nor there. Talking about what I think is a pretty awesome conclusion to this film, and that is the ending of this movie, breaking it all down, talking about it and what's going to happen now. So let's get into it. We have Andy, we have, Kay's in the ship at this point, and we have, my girl Rain. She's going back. She went back to save her brother, And now they're on the ship and they're thinking that, everything's good, which is a trope in the Alien franchise, especially in the original two with Ripley thinking that everything's good and she's going to go into hypersleep. And the same with Aliens, the Newt and Bishop, everything's good and Gucci. It isn't. She finds out that one of the aliens, the xenomorph, is on the ship with them. And it's not your average xenomorph. The whole film led up to this point of obviously Kay is pregnant, and before she went on the ship, the goo from Prometheus and Covenant that David was working on, and obviously Rook and the ash looking Rook that I was not a fan of was working on. She's kind of desperate, and I understand the decision, but it was a bad decision. She sticks herself with the goo because she wants to protect her and her child, obviously, because at this point in the film, she's been thrown around. She's been kidnapped by a xenomorph. So she's like, I want to protect my kid. And she kind of heard that it's something that can enhance the human body. So I get the decision. So they're on the ship. Rain puts her in the cryo sleeping chain so they can go to their 9-year trip. She puts the kind of a sleeper mode for Annie to get prepared for when they need to get what they need to go. He wakes up, yada, yada, yada. Rain, again, this third act to me, while it was Fetty, this to me was a better version of like rehashing scenes, but also having his visionary style on it. This was Alien because as we'll break it down, this reminded me of Aliens, Alien Resurrection, and of course Prometheus. So we have an alert goes off with Kay's pod. She opens it, and here comes the baby, y'all. Obviously, the injection enhanced the baby and the sped up thing. Fetty, the weirdo you are, and I loved it, but I have some criticisms that we'll talk about here in a second. The baby's coming out. It eventually comes out, and obviously, Kay is just had the baby. She undoes the umbilical cord, and the baby with the acid kind of goes through the ship. Before we continue, my issue. Fetty Alvarez, you're the same guy that gave us the blood scene, the blood of Rain and Evil Dead. You're the same guy that gave us the turkey baster scene in Don't Breathe. You get weird, and I love the weirdness, and I love the creepiness and the sexual nature, perverted nature of his films. The baby, chest burster, baby birth, a la Shaw from her C-section in Prometheus. Could it have been gorier? Could it have been bloodier? Could it have been more disgusting and just makes you want to look at it through your hands? I think so. I think it was rushed. It went too fast for me. Like it should have been more brutal, more tension. It's I don't want to get too perverted and demonetize this video, but like the birth canal, like it could have got bloodier, y'all, if you ask me. But it didn't. But the result of what comes out of K is pretty crazy. So at this point, we have Rain going through the ship looking for creature, the hybrid creature. The skin's peeling off, and we eventually see it, and it is pretty grotesque. It is a pretty disgusting looking hybrid. It's a mixture of obviously a xenomorph, obviously a mixture of like an actual human body DNA, but also the engineers, which the engineers by themselves look creepy as hell. So it's this hybrid looking 7 foot tall creature from the Smile movie. It looks very much like the creature from Smile. But again, the thing that I really enjoyed about it is because I am a Prometheus Covenant fan. I like that we kind of see that kind of payoff of what a perfect specimen human birth creature hybrid would look like, and this is what Fetty does for me, right? I really enjoyed the design and the creature that we have here. We have Rain, who is in the suit at this point. She had to use the ice machine, which I love that tension, how she was crawling up to the suit, which again reminded me of Alien, with obviously seeing Ripley in the suit with the xenomorph that was hiding in the kind of the cabin area of the ship. She gets in the suit, and the alien makes his way to like a corridor, kind of darker area, and she comes face to face with it. But she's smart on her feet. She wants to do, which is obviously alien callback to many films, especially Alien and Aliens. Let's get it out of the airlock, right? And she has to use the hatch or the levers to release it, but obviously it's grabbing onto her and getting her. But she inevitably does get the hatch open, and I just love the sound design in this film. When they go out into space, at this point, the tension's high, the score is pumping, blood's pumping, everything's working, and then obviously it's no sound in space. And I just love the visual of the creature hanging on to the foot. And again, it reminded me of Aliens with the creature being held down and the air shaft open in space. And it was pretty awesome, man. I loved it, man. She is able to obviously get the alien or the hybrid alien off of her. It's now floating in space, very similar to Kane's son, Big Clap. So, question I have for you on number one, what did you think about the third act? I know it could be divisive for some, especially if you're not a fan of Covenant and Prometheus and hybrid looking creatures like the same creature we got from Alien Resurrection. And I was hoping for the creature to say, "Mommy," to Kay when it saw it, because it didn't kill Kay, because that's obviously its mother. But let me know what you thought of the design, the third act, how it all led up, and all that stuff. Let's talk about it in the comments. But my next question is, what is going to happen to that hybrid? Where is that hybrid? Will we ever see what happened as far as continuation with it floating in space? Because, like I said, it is the same thing with Kane's son, the xenomorph that was created from the first Alien. Are we ever going to follow up with that story? Because at this point, as the film ends, obviously Kay, I'm pretty sure she died after giving birth to that creature. But Andy, who initially didn't know that he was going to be able to go on the planet, but she's like, "I don't care. You're coming with me. You're my brother. Like, and I did all this shit to get you to this point. You're coming with me, damn it." So she's taking her brother to the planet. They got 9 years to travel. She goes into sleep, and it's very similar to Alien with, telling the person, whoever finds this beacon, that what happened. And I hope to find this planet, but if I don't, I'll fix it, right? Because she's a fixer, man. She was quick on her feet. I really enjoyed the Rain character. So will we see the continuation of what happened to the, because this is obviously taking place between Alien and Aliens, and we know what happens with Aliens, Alien 3, Alien 4. So was the DNA, was this hybrid captured at some point, a la what happened with the cloning with Ripley and 4? And the queen alien and all that stuff, does it play into that somehow? Will we ever see Rain and Andy? Did they make it to their planet, or do they get intercepted? Is there another movie Fede Alvarez come back to direct that mission, the capturing of the hybrid, the capturing of Wayland taking Rain and Andy? Do they make it to the planet and it's not what they thought it was? Like, is there another story to be told there? I think it is, and I would love to see that personally. If you're a fan of this franchise, like I am, not all stories get wrapped up with a nice little bow. Unfortunately, Neil Blomkamp, Alien 5 never happened. Ridley Scott, following up to what happened with Covenant, we don't know what's going to happen there. So, like I said, my question in the comments for you all: will we see it? I guess before that, do you want to see Rain, Andy, creature, hybrid android, freak come back? And the second question is, will it come back? I'm pre-recording this. I'm hopeful that the movie is profitable to warrant a follow-up series, but let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But what I do want to talk about is, what do we know will be happening? What is a guarantee to happen? What is the next chapter in the Alien franchise? So it was announced a while ago. Noah Hawley, the showrunner, creative director and writer, who I'm a big fan of. Legion, one of my favorite comic book TV shows of all time, and the Fargo franchise, who he is just brilliant with that series. He will be showrunning another Alien project, which will be on FX, the first Alien show, if I'm not mistaken, ever. It is called Alien Earth. And from what I'm able to find, because there's very limited information online, like narrative, and there's a cast out there, younger cast, but the basic synopsis so far is that this is a series that will serve as a prequel and will be set 3 decades before the events of 1979 Alien, which again is coming on FX/Hulu in 2025. So, if I were to read into that, obviously that's not a continuation of this story. And it says it's set in the events, so it's in the world of Alien that Ridley Scott has created, but it's in more of the Prometheus, I would probably say the Covenant area, because I believe Prometheus happens. Well, I know Prometheus happens, and I think it's 20, 30 years until we follow up with Covenant, which Covenant is 17 years before Alien. So maybe it's after Prometheus, before Prometheus. more of the engineer story, more of the biological weapon they're trying to create with the black goo that was created by the engineers. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. Number one, I'm an Alien fan, so I'm going to be watching it. But number two, Noah Hawley is an excellent show writer, showrunner, so I'm very confident in it. Again, the cast is kind of a new up and coming cast, and again, it's called Earth, so I'm assuming it's going to take place on Earth. More of the Wayland amalgamation behind the scenes of how that corporation was maybe made and all that stuff. So let me know if you guys are excited for that. And again, let me know if you want to see the continuation at some point, whether it's Fede Alvarez or not, but the continuation of Kaylee Spaney's reign, David Johnson's Andy, and that freakish looking creature. Will we get that continuation? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. That is my spoiler discussion of the ending of Alien Romulus and also leading up to the ending, breaking down the film. If you stuck around to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching it. Like, share, leave all your thoughts about the film, what worked, what didn't work, favorite moments, least favorite moments, theories, predictions, Easter eggs, deeper meanings, and what next in the franchise. Let's talk about it in the comments below. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.